Hey everybody, welcome to a Commute cast version of the Ever Vigilant podcast with me, Joe Prim. I want to do a quick podcast about an epic battle on our homestead for the very lives of our fruit and nut trees. This epic battle is against an adversary known as the Japanese beetle. The Japanese beetle is an invasive species from the island of Japan. The beetle is 3/8 of an inch long by about 1/4 of an inch wide with a voracious appetite. The beetle varies in color from a metallic copperish color to a greenish color. It is believed that they came over from Japan in the soil that came along with flowers that were imported in the 1920s. Although there were laws against importing soil from outside of the United States, those laws were not strictly enforced. The Japanese beetle has been wreaking havoc on our country then, on the east of the Mississippi for about 100 years. They say that west of the Mississippi, the Japanese beetle will be moving that way soon. In doing some research, trying to figure out how we were going to get rid of this beetle on our property, the number one option for getting rid of it is to pick them off by hand. Obviously, this is time consuming, especially due to the sheer numbers in which this beetle attacks trees. The other options for organically getting rid of this beetle are an oil called neem oil, which is a product from a tree that can be sprayed on the leaves of the tree, and that slows the beetle down. It doesn't kill them, but it slows down their eating habits and they don't eat as much, causing less damage. The other option is inoculating your land with milky spore, because milky spore will kill and attack the Japanese beetle when it's in its grub form. That is more of a long-term plan. Milky spore can stay in your on your property, in your pastures, in your lawn for around 10 years, but it will take several years before it really gets hold and can start attacking the grub form of the Japanese beetle. Last year, we lost at least 2 or 3 trees to the Japanese beetles. Last year, our attack was just to collect them up on a daily basis. When I would get home from work, we would put a few inches of water in the bottom of a 5-gallon bucket and walk around the property and knock the beetles or pick them off into the bucket of water. And after we were done collecting them for the day, then we would feed them to our chickens or to the ducks. And that worked out pretty good. Like I said, last year we lost probably 2 or 3 trees. The trees had only been in the ground for probably around 3 months at that point, and they were bare roots, so they didn't have a very strong root system. This year our trees have a stronger root system, but the beetles seem to be a lot more in number than they were last year. So this year we started out just collecting them by hand again, but there are so many of them that I've been trying this neem oil as our next offensive step in defeating this enemy. I will say I am very pleased with it, with the neem oil. It's not a cheap solution, but it is an organic solution. Neem oil can be sprayed on your trees up to like the day that you harvest the fruit. It's a natural oil that breaks down through sunlight and rain on the trees itself and is considered safe for consumption after it has been sprayed on the leaves. I don't think you'd want to drink it out of the bucket. Just kidding. Anyway, sometimes it's hard to keep my concentration on doing the podcast when I'm driving. Sorry if I lose focus every once in a while. So because this year the Japanese beetles were there were so many more, I decided to try this neem oil. I'm actually very pleased with the results from the neem oil. They seem to have cut down the number of beetles that we're collecting each day by about 75%. So it has definitely slowed them down, but I can see already that it probably will be something that I will need to do quite possibly on a weekly basis. They recommend every 7 to 14 days. We're so infested on our property with them, I don't see us being able to wait more than 7 days at this point. I can see, based on the other plants on our property that we didn't spray, that aren't protected, weeds, trees that I'm not worried about, milkweed, things like that, the comfrey, that the beetles have definitely gone away from what was sprayed and have found other things to eat, which is good. I don't think that they will be a problem maybe 2 or 3 years into the future. I think that the trees will be big enough and their root structure strong enough to probably be able to deal with the situation on their own. But right now, it is a time-consuming task going to each tree every day and collecting off as many of the beetles as we can. But as a permaculture thing, we are turning a problem into a solution, and we do feed the beetles to our chickens and ducks every day. So I won't call it a win-win situation, but it is a way of giving more protein to our birds, while at the same time relieving ourselves of a problem. So each day, and another thing is, as much as it is time consuming to walk the property each day, it does give me an opportunity to spend time with my children, to walk the property, to have discussions with them about what's going on the property, what they're up to. So again, turning a negative into a positive wherever we can. And also seeing things in a different light. Instead of seeing the negative, looking for the positive and utilizing things in our favor instead of complaining and letting something ruin your day or your time or your property. So the neem oil seems to be working, seems to be beneficial, seems to be helping us out. I don't believe that you'll ever eradicate the problem. In doing research on this, they said that if you try to use some sort of traps for them, that you will probably only attract more, and that they will fly up to 1 mile for a good meal. One of their favorite things to munch on is soybeans, and I believe corn. I live in an area where there will always be soybeans and corn, so I don't foresee this problem going away. It'll be just a matter of getting our trees nurtured along till they're big enough to deal with the problem themselves, and even then we may need to get involved somewhat, hopefully a lot more limited in our interaction or intervention in dealing with this problem. But we did have kind of a funny story about this, because a couple days after I had sprayed the neem oil, I was walking the property with my son, and we were not getting nearly as many as we had, of course, the day or 2 days before. And we looked down in the bucket, and there was probably only 50 to 100 beetles. And as we walked by a section where there's a lot of milkweed, the milkweed was loaded. And I mean loaded with these Japanese beetles. So I was satisfied just to leave those beetles alone and leave them in peace. But my son insisted that we collect up as many as we could, that we needed to do whatever we could do to get these beetles off of our property. So, being the good dad I try to be, I agreed with him and said, okay, buddy, let's do it. It got to the point where we were dropping so many Japanese beetles into the buckets, it was as if you took one of those big party bags of M&Ms and were dumping them into the bucket. We were dumping Japanese beetles off of the milkweed by the hundreds. By the time we finished up clearing off these milkweeds, and we did not travel far, the milkweeds that we collected these beetles from was probably within 3 square feet. It was a very small area. But this is just a testament to how voracious their appetite is and how ferociously they attack. It's the sheer numbers in the way that they attack that makes them so nasty. So we ended up with so many Japanese beetles that I poured them into the little feed bowl that I pour them into for the ducks and chickens. First the chickens came over, the full-size hens came over, and they ate their fill. All 5 of them ate till they didn't want to eat anymore, and they left. Then the young hens, the pullets, came over, and they ate their fill along with the little turkey. When they didn't want any more, they left. And then the ducks came, and they finished them all up. So we ended up having so many beetles that we were able to completely fill up 10 chickens and a turkey and 5 ducks for the night. So again, when we have negatives in our lives, let's try to figure out a way to enjoy them, a way to make them into something positive rather than just get so caught up in the negative. These kind of things can serve as a real bonding experience when you need to get the whole family involved and motivated to fight something, to have a common enemy. So use it in your favor. Make these things into family projects and use the extra help to attack these things so you're not trying to do everything on your own, and you will be a lot better off. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I know it's a quick one. Maybe I can get another one in this weekend, a little bit longer, maybe a little bit more in depth on something. You can follow me on Twitter at TheEverVigilant. You can email me at evervigilantpodcast@gmail.com. I would really appreciate any feedback, positive or negative, any ideas on on topics or things that you would like talked about on this podcast, I would appreciate it. Again, thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. Remember the 3 F's: faith, family, and freedom. God bless.